Wait, was the internet wrong about J Dilla's production techniques? In the extensive and highly informative book Dilla Time, the author had this to say about J Dilla's production technique. The prevailing explanation of his methods, and the most misleading, is that his time feel is exclusively the result of his playing freehand without timing correct or quantization. He then added, part of the problem with understanding how these sounds are produced and explaining what they do is that many people, musicians and beat makers, journalists and academics, are using old vocabulary like pocket, swing, and groove to talk about something new. Some call it that JD swing, others call it that Detroit swing. Dilla called it simple complex. In this video, we'll explain some of J Dilla's programming techniques, show examples, and discuss some theory behind his signature production. J Dilla, aka JD, aka James Dewitt Yancey, was one of the most influential hip-hop producers of all time. During his career, he worked with Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, The Roots, Common, Madlib, D'Angelo, Pharcyde, Slum Village, and Erykah Badu, just to name a few. Though he passed away in 2006 from a rare blood disease, his legacy lives on in his music. Long before his tragic and untimely death, people studied and imitated his production style, though it wasn't until recently that more information about his methods were revealed. What makes J Dilla's production interesting was not only his sample selection and technique, but the time feel of his programming. Dilla learned to make beats in Amp Fiddler Studio on an MPC-60 before switching to a borrowed EMU SP-1200. On this gear, he produced hit songs like Runnin' for Pharcyde and Stakes is High for De La Soul. With the success of these and other songs, he was able to purchase some equipment, including his famous Akai MPC-3000 limited edition. This drum machine, along with Dilla's Moog Voyager, is now on display at the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. It was with the MPC-3000 that Dilla would perfect his style and master his craft. This machine, along with the MPC-60, were designed by Roger Linn in association with Akai. Linn envisioned the 3000 as what he called a legitimate instrument. In the introduction of the MPC-3000 Operator's Manual, he wrote, "I like to think of the MPC-3000 as a piano or violin of our time, and of you, the user, as an MPC-3000ist. In the same way that a violinist's style is identified by his or her vibrato or phrasing, your MPC-3000 virtuosity may be identified by your particular swing settings." Although Dilla supposedly didn't read the manual, Roger Linn was a true visionary who believed in the potential of his machine, especially in the hands of a genius. Simple complex is what Dilla and his friends called the style that he had developed. It was simple in theory, but complex in its effect. To begin to describe his technique, we'll need to use old vocabulary and understand swing. Swing is difficult to describe and could get its own video. Put simply, swing is where the timing of notes, or the pulse of music, is divided into uneven groups. This results in a set of short and long durations. Sometimes the second or fourth notes in a measure are altered. It's the contrast of notes on grid with those off grid that creates a feeling of swing. Another way to think about it is to visualize the grid that the notes are on. A grid with straight timing would appear kind of like graph paper, with even spacing between vertical lines which represent time. A swung grid would have uneven spacing between vertical intervals. This emphasizes short and long durations between notes. In an MPC, the swing setting is within the time correct menu. The swing setting is represented as a percentage between 50 and 75%. 50% is unaffected and 75% is extreme. 66%, meanwhile, would give you perfect swing with triplet notes. Wait, before we go any further, I'll just tell you that this won't get you Dilla's time feel because applying swing to notes in an MPC requires timing correct to be enabled, and we already know that Dilla didn't use timing correct. But that doesn't solve the mystery of his signature swing. In Ableton Live, they call the swing setting Groove. I know Dilla didn't use Ableton, but bear with me. Many Groove presets are available in this DAW, and popular emulations of devices like the MPC-3000 can be applied to specific notes or globally to a song file. From a list of presets, we can drag a selection directly onto a clip. We can also fine-tune the settings of this in the groove's options. Then we can apply it. Now we can flip between the original and the swung version to see how the notes were altered. It's an interesting feature and it helps emulate the timing of the machine Dilla used. But the mystery remains, and we need to keep digging. When listening closely to Dilla's music, as well as examining waveforms, something more complex is happening. Applying the swing setting won't reproduce these results because some elements are swung while others are straight, but having an understanding of swing timing is still important. The complexity of Dilla's technique begins to reveal itself, and we'll need to dive deeper. Quantization is a machine's timing correction feature applied to notes. As notes are played freehand, timing can be off, leaving an undesirable result. Timing correction, sometimes called timing correct or quantization, is intended to correct these notes by moving them onto or closer to the grid. Okay, now that we know all that, we can forget all about it, right? We're all good, school's out, let's go home. Not just yet. Let's assume Dilla didn't have quantization turned on. That means his time feel may have been the result of his finger drumming technique. But we're not addressing his skills as a programmer. Time shift is a feature that was unique to the MPC when it was released. This feature allows the timing of each note or sound to be adjusted independently of others by increments of time called ticks. Unlike the swing feature that applies to a group of notes, time shift can alter individual notes. On modern devices, this is sometimes called nudge. This is the feature that allowed Dilla to unlock the potential of the MPC and create his signature time feel. Many of his songs feature snares that were early, kicks that were late, and hi-hats that were straight. The subtleties and nuances of his time feel ultimately require good skills in programming and editing in order to replicate and perfect them. Let's return back to the MPC and apply what we've learned so far. First, set the tempo to 92 BPM. Let's start by recording some hi-hats against a metronome. Playing them freehand captures velocity input from the pads and creates a humanized feel. Record the notes when ready. Review the sequence and adjust the notes so that they are tight to the grid. Next, let's place our snares. Turn the metronome off and instead use the hi-hats for reference. Play the notes freehand and make sure they are just a micro amount early. Examining the notes on the grid, we see our timing isn't perfect and we can select the notes and nudge their timing until they're perfectly early. We can zoom in more closely to see this. Next, let's record the kicks. Place them late with a simple pattern. Examine the notes closely to review their timing. Adjust the notes so they are just a hair late. Press play to hear the beat. J Dilla was a master at flipping samples. Through a lifetime of listening to music that started from an early age, Dilla had an extensive knowledge of music to pull samples from. He was a habitual crate digger, always looking for new material, and his taste and sensibilities can't be taught. But his sampling techniques can be studied. He would often speed up or slow down samples. He would sample nuances in a recording to exaggerate them and play them into his time feel.
One, two. 1, 2.
He would sample and program beats that were not in typical 4/4 time signatures. Here's an example where he samples James Brown's song King Heroin, which is in 3/4 timing, and converts it into a 4/4 beat.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Americans,
here's an example where he takes Herbie Hancock's song Come Running to Me and turns it into a 7-bar loop, which results in a polyrhythmic arrangement. He sometimes programmed tempo changes by slowing down samples and then abruptly speeding them up to create a contrast in time feel. Often when people sample music, they look for clear or open notes that don't have other sounds or vocals mixed with them. Sometimes a song may only have a few open notes. Dilla had a special gift of deconstructing songs to create new and natural sounding loops. As Questlove described it, it's the equivalent of somebody solving a 10,000-piece puzzle in record time.
Now listen. Yeah, doing this song for your revolution.
A quick word from our sponsor. Subscribe and like to keep him happy. Lastly, be sure to check out the book Dilla Time by Dan Charnas. This is an amazing book and worth reading. Thanks for watching.